Good evening. I'm coming to you on my very favorite holiday weekend ever. Any celebration of love really gets me excited because, as the Beatles said, all you really need is love. Love is why we came. Love is what we spend our whole life learning how to give and receive, and love is all that we take with us when we transition. So it's so nice to share love with you all tonight. What Leo said is so true. I was talking with Yasko on Sunday, and I said, I know there's a spirit involved in the talks that have been coming through recently. We don't consult with each other, but there is such a continuous stream of information, and we know we need to reloop and repeat because we're humans. We like hearing interesting ideas, but it takes time to practice and integrate them. So I'm really here because of the speakers that preceded me. I remember when Leo was going through plenitude, and he said, I'm not really that familiar with all these alternative therapies. I heard a voice in my head that said, you are. So therefore the next step is, start to share. Plenitude to me is a breakthrough book. And I did some research out of curiosity to find out more about Joanna de Angelis, our spirit psychologist, just how many books have come through. This is where, of course, I can't be Brazilian. I can't be there in the mother tongue getting all these books as they're being put together. But according to my looking at a website, which is out of London, the Spiritist Psychological Society, Joanna has 20 books. I could find 9 in English. So English-speaking people have a lot to look forward to. We're still waiting on all the tireless workers who are busy translating, because even the book Plenitude is 25 years old. And we've had it a couple of years. So it's so nice to get excited about like a whole new endeavor, because with my background and my career years of being a psychologist, there's a natural migration to spirituality, and it all comes together under transpersonal psychology. And as you've heard Kirsten talk about whenever she's speaking, Carl Jung, transpersonal psychology, it's all a newer, fresher map for how we are to evolve. So when Yasko finished last week and I went home, I said to myself, time for intelligent sleep. And I think most of you are familiar with that concept. But, excuse me, if for some reason you're not, it's really as you fall asleep, you talk to your mentor, guardian angel, spirit guide, and ask for help on something. So I said, help me with this talk. So when I woke up next Sunday morning, I was told I needed to tell you a little bit about myself, because I am an American spiritist. Most of the people I've met who are spiritists came from Brazil. They had the advantage of the exposure in their home country. So I will share a little bit. It was the 21st of December in 2002. I met friends in Abadiânia, Brazil, for a 2-week visit with John of God, which could be another talk in itself. It was life-changing for me. I was there in a very good time period. And that's where I heard about Spiritism. There were a lot of people working in that center who were Spiritists, but they weren't necessarily identifying. And then when I got home, I was doing part-time private practice at Ruscombe Mansion, which is Baltimore's original holistic health center. The practitioner across the hall for me one night just gave me the Spirits book. She had heard I'd come back from Brazil, and she said, you might like to read this. Then I was leaving that night, and I saw a flyer, and it had Spiritist Talk. I said, oh, this is a message. So I got my good friend Laura, who has transitioned about a year ago, and I said, let's go. She said, sure. So we heard our first Spiritist talk. It was an overhead. We hadn't gotten to PowerPoints yet. And at the end, we received passes. And this is my favorite observation that Laura has left me with. After receiving the passes, she says to me, I don't know where I just went, but I sure want to go back there. So if that wasn't a stamp of approval, then I had found a new home. And because of my Catholic upbringing, you know, I am fully versed in a lot of the principles of Christianity. However, I didn't realize until I became a Spiritist that the Catholic Church had even more that I would have liked if they could have kept like reincarnation going. But due to power and the need to do whatever in the church, there was a Council of Trent or something that kind of made reincarnation go underground. So it's very nice to come full circle now and get back to the best of Catholicism, expanded through Spiritism. In the interim period, I was attracted to Buddhism, and I really think it is such a wonderful treatment for the mind. We know we continue to come back to the subject of thoughts, and that'll be part of what I talk about tonight, as all speakers do. So through Buddhism, we have been given this powerful tool of meditation. And Joanna certainly supports it, which is why I'm so excited again with these newer books. Because meditation is a process. We weren't born into it. That's why I'm trying to make it simple tonight too, to give you some ideas that are easy to start with so you won't get overwhelmed. So that's been my journey. The other thought was I've always been a spiritual seeker. It's just who I am. And as a preschooler, my mother would tell her friends that I asked her why I could not become the Pope. So obviously I have high aspirations, but that was my first encounter with the reality of a limitation that, you know, is still going on. So for tonight to get started, and we don't have to dim the lights, I wanted to do a very simple centering exercise so we fully come home to ourselves. So it's your choice to close your eyes, or if you'd like to just, you know, look at those beautiful images up there, it's fine. But just for another minute, if we can take a slow, deep breath as we fill our lungs up and then exhale totally, I would like you just to feel your weight in the chair. You are well supported. Your body's very alive. Now that you feel secure, focus your attention on your heart. You may even like to touch your heart and feel it beating. This is the seat of your love and your wisdom. Feel it nourishing you, and then imagine that there are pink rays coming out of your heart that are now moving around the room. And as Heart Math has taught us, we are now increasing the vibratory power of love. Let it move through the room. Let's send it through the internet. Let's share it with all the spirits who have come here tonight to be with us. And then we can just see it leaving this room and spreading out. And now we're ready to come back to the room. Hopefully you feel awesome. This only took about a minute and a half, and this is part of what I'm hoping to share. Let's find some practical, simple ways that somehow we can remember at the start of the day or throughout the day that will help us stay on track and be in communication with our deeper self. Okay, I need to move the next slide. Let's see. I think we go that way. Everything to me is like magic. I also wanted to give a special thank you to Daniel. Without Daniel, you would just have me and my books and everything. But because of Daniel, we have a lot here to help us get through the talk. So I know you're capable of reading, so we'll just go through these quotes that I pulled out of Plenitude because they really seem to anchor me in how I wanted to give ideas tonight. And other Spiritist speakers have already mentioned this. The traditional therapies remove symptoms but do not reach the root cause of illness. So one of our favorites is Louise Hay. I know about You Can Heal Your Life. This was a new one for me, The Power is Within You. So just pretend that you're back in kindergarten and the teacher said it's reading time, and I'll share a short passage with you. This is from Louise. And she had a cancer diagnosis, so this is in relationship to that experience. When I found my metaphysical pathway, I covered up my feelings with a nice layer of spirituality and hid a lot of garbage inside me, which can happen. I have a friend who was so excited to understand that she was a spirit. That was it. All I have to do is think positive thoughts. I'll be taken care of. I'm good. I said, wait a minute, you're forgetting all the other parts of yourself. We really do have homework on all levels. So Louise said, I put a wall around myself that kept me literally out of touch with my own feelings. I didn't know who I was or where I was. After my cancer diagnosis, the real inner work of learning to know myself began. Thank God I had tools to use. I needed to go within myself if I was going to make any permanent changes. Yes, the doctor could give me an operation and perhaps take care of my illness for the moment, but if I didn't change the way I was using my thoughts and my words, I'd probably recreate it again. And I hear a lot, I love it when people are nodding along with me because it's saying that we really are talking about, I'd call them universal truths. We weren't necessarily raised with this framework, but that's what we're in the process of finding out. So I guess, oh look, a pointer. Here we go. So ever since their social origins, here we are. How we have all these difficulties right from the beginning. That we learn to be afraid. We learn to hold on to anger, to be thrown off by minor events. And therefore we disarticulate our energy system. Again, that's good. We're all in agreement. And the pioneer of stress research, Dr. Hans Selye, was the one that really helped us look at this, that when stress comes, we do fight, flight, or freeze. And in that immediate situation, that's fine. But as we're learning, you have really got to release that impact, or it's going to go down and sit in your body. And if you're not in the practice of releasing emotions, we know, unfortunately, it's going to build up, and someday it will probably come out in a way you would not be happy with. Okay, and building on that same thought, boing, most infirmities originate in the emotions as a result of an energy imbalance that then spills over into the mental or physical arena, harming the organic structure. And Yasko mentioned Dr. Candace Pert last week. We love to reference her. She was the researcher at NIMH who helped us understand that your emotions are just not in your brain. They're just not your thoughts. But they really are at the basis of your immune system. So now we're thinking, my tendency to pick up colds and flus and headaches and then more major illnesses. There's another route to healing, which is familiarity with my feelings and learning how to deal with them. And of course, what is our answer to everything? Love. It's the great law of life, establishes the criterion of justice and equality per our favorite law of action and reaction. When I was an elementary school counselor and we were teaching parenting skills, I learned so much from that course, because it was really how to communicate with everybody. It wasn't just parent to child. And how do we learn? We learn because it happens. You touch the stove, you get burned. That is a natural consequence. You don't do your homework, your grade goes down some. That's a logical consequence. So everything is happening all the time. It's perfect. You make a choice, an action happens, and you get a response. We just need to follow that trail and then say, oops. We don't come back and say, oh, horrible me. That's another problem. But oops, let me think, and we'll correct this one. Only self-awareness and true individuation foster a healthy life on earth and then beyond it. There's nothing to disagree with here. We're just still struggling with, so how do I get to know myself? You know, I mean, I'm all in for this, but it's not like I was born with like the map on how to get to know myself. Okay, now we're going to move again. One of my favorite spiritual influences is Yoga, help me. Yes. Oh, I know, it's the first name. Thank you. All right, I have help from my American friends here. Paramahasa Yogananda. Every year there's a beautiful planning book called Inner Reflections. And I get it to record my dreams. It's good to have a couple journals around for different purposes. But the images and the thoughts are just outstanding. So I guess for people on the internet, we'll read it out loud. Spirit is the infinite reservoir of wisdom. Each human life is a channel through which that divine wisdom is steadily flowing. Some channels are wide and others narrow. The larger the channel, the greater the flow of God power. And that's really a beautiful image for why we keep trying to grow and evolve, because we are all channels. We are the only people to look at why we're flowing weak or strong. And it varies. It's not just a steady progression, but we just go back and say, oh, what do I have to work on now? How am I blocking God's light from coming through me? And the more I keep cleaning out everything that I've been dragging through past lives and accumulating in this one, I'm then freer. What greater reward is that? To feel like you're walking around in joy and you're of value to other people. You're helping them. So, and Yogananda was such an important person to come from India because he's the bridge. He integrated Jesus with all the known masters in India, which is really a breakthrough. If you can imagine being raised in the West, we're familiar with certain teachers. Raised in the East, you have other teachers. But to bring them together, he understood the power in doing that. So if you'd like to know him further, the book is Autobiography of a Yogi, and the movie is Awake, and they're both awesome. Okay, now we'll move to American, homegrown Edgar Cayce, who was the sleeping prophet because he would give his readings while in a trance. And today, this is a worldwide organization. How the members come together is through Search for God study groups. It's just like when people come here on Thursdays and study a book, there are guidelines and outlines for people that are involved with the ARE to come together in groups in people's homes and share this information and practice spiritually. And there's Leo's favorite word, analyze. We'll start out with that. Know yourself and your purposes. Know what you believe physically, mentally, spiritually. Know the sources of your beliefs. Now that's an interesting one. A lot we just take for granted and we go, whoa, why do I believe that? For in such an analysis, you find your true self. There are more than 14,000 case histories that are at the ARE in Virginia Beach. How many people have been there? Yay. There's a tradition in the East that when you vacation, you go on a pilgrimage. So I'm not saying we have to adopt that fully. We can still surf at the beach. But you can mix up some of your vacations with going to an incredible spiritual place. And at least Virginia Beach does have an ocean with it. And the ways that you know yourself, and here's our list that I think we probably know already: analyzing, reflecting, which is a little different than analyzing. You're kind of just resting in the information and waiting until an insight bubbles up. Meditation, dream work, interactions with other people. So this is where you're really lucky if you've got people around you who are willing to be your mirror. This takes some doing, because most of us are not all that comfortable with somebody saying, I believe you're feeling, it seems to me you're thinking. But how powerful is that, to have another human being who can mirror you back? And then journaling. It is so wonderful to journal, because just by the act of writing, you're moving it out of yourself, and it can also be more of a reminder or a commitment to do something. Okay, I'm sharing my top hits tonight, my favorite guides, and I love maps, I do, because I need to kind of guess where I am. I don't like just being out there making it up. So Dr. David Hawkins has a number of books out, but this seems to be the one that most people refer to. And what is going here with maps of consciousness is some way to give you a better picture of the energetic quantum field you're living in. Like, it's so abstract. Like Lynn Taggart wrote the book, I know that Yasko's familiar with this, on this energy field that we're in. We talk about it in Spiritism, but I think we have to find ways to make it some way more practical that we can use it. So this is based on a procedure called muscle testing, which certain people are familiar with, and it's recorded in a book, Behavioral Kinesiology by Dr. John Diamond. And in essence, it just means when you're trusting this system works and there's a sentence said, you will get a yes or a no, a true or a false. There is a wisdom inside your body, because I had my first experience with muscle testing with a massage therapist who was helping me decide on a vitamin. You know, you have to just be open-minded, because in the beginning, this stuff seems pretty far out. And she had me hold it in my energy field, and in this case, the yes and the no was a movement in my body. You can also work with this with a pendulum. Peg had that experience this summer at my house. So there are many tools out there. I think it's just really encouraging your curiosity. So let's go back and see what he found. Where is that? There it is. Whoops, I went the wrong way. I knew I'd do something. Nope, wrong way. Wrong way. I want this one back. I was trying to get to this pointer. So here is why we're here, love. What Dr. Hawkins says is this is about the apex of human beings. I mean, this person's really evolved. When you get up here, you're looking at the handful of spiritual teachers that we reference a lot, like Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Yogananda again. So if we keep going down, we find the things we're working on. Now, we don't want to spend our life down here for a lot of reasons, because we believe in evolution. Our job is to keep on evolving. This isn't a straight upward line. It's more like the stock market. I mean, it'll go up and down, and you'll say, oh, wow, was that a great day? I reasoned through it, it all worked out, and then boom, traffic, and you find yourself down again. But this is all to let everybody feel okay about this. We're all in this soup pot together, so why don't we just support each other and smile? Forgiveness. This is going to come into my talk tonight. That's a big one. And you can see, this is a very simple chart, but it's mercy and it's acceptance. All of this is enabling you to forgive, and it's a nice experience of transcendence. You don't need a whole crowd that's just done this, because you will know inside yourself when you have forgiven, you've let go, you feel lighter. So now you can say to yourself, whoops, I did it again. We want to go back. Yes. Okay. You can just say to yourself, if you had this chart, I did it. I got back to 350. And every time you're going to dig out another piece of shame or blame or guilt, you're saying, okay, enough, enough, enough. I know where I want to live. I think it's time for a new slide. All right. Okay. Back to Yogananda's beautiful Inner Reflections book. I thought this line really captured why we might want to meditate. If you never lose your peace, you will find you are always victorious, no matter what the outcome of your problems. That is the way to conquer life. So again, we're moving beyond just the surface of life, the cause, what we see. Sure, we go up and down, but we're trying to grow this stronger inner sense that sees everything as a teaching, an experience for growth. It's a whole new way of looking on life. And therefore, I can work with everything that comes my way. And the best way to develop inner peace is meditation. And Joanna is endorsing it. And also when I looked in some of her other books, guided imagery and meditation are creating experiences in our brain that are unique. And now that science has researched long-term meditators, a lot through the Dalai Lama's work, where they have had MRI scans of people that have been meditating for 10,000, 15,000 hours for years and years and years. Two of the things I found in my reading was the myelin sheath around the nerve fibers is growing stronger and thicker. And people with this practice of meditation, the frontal lobes are functioning better. Like that's where it's happening. In our evolution, it's your executive functioning, your frontal lobes. And when I was still working as a school psychologist, we knew that having a survey, opinions of teachers and parents on executive functioning was better than just saying the child can't concentrate, because it breaks it down into behaviors such as time management, initiation, am I a self-starter, emotional control. And when we find strengths and weaknesses in that pattern, we can intervene. We have some steps. So the fact that you're growing stronger functioning, you're clearing up your ability to have short-term memory and long-range planning is another amazing benefit. A lot of the teachers that are established today in the United States come from my generation. It was during the 60s and 70s in the Vietnam War era that we were privileged. I understand that. I had the means to get on a plane and go to Europe and eventually go to India. So we were out exploring. Some people were staying, like Dr. Richard Alpert, who became Baba Ram Dass, stayed in an ashram in India. And then Jack Kornfield, who heads up Insight Meditation at Spirit Rock, he was in a Thai monastery. So they stayed. They were the first ones, the pioneers that experienced it from the Asian teachers and then said, now we need to bring it back home. So when I did my retreat to Bhutan a couple years ago, one of our main teachers was one of the first students of the teacher that came to Boulder, Colorado. So she's in her 70s. So that just shows you how young this practice of meditation is for Westerners. And it continues to grow because we have new generations now. I know Abby's familiar with this. We're taking it into the schools. Children need these tools. We know that if you raise children with these ideas from a young age, they're going to grow up more empowered and know what to do. But we're all here because we still want to learn these things. Okay. So how to start to meditate? I think the response I hear the most, which is logical, is I can't stop my thoughts. Well, that's correct. That's what your brain is for. It is to think. What we're going to do in meditation is learn how to observe our thoughts and actually how to change our thoughts. And all of a sudden, we feel differently. I think the catchphrase is monkey mind. I'm always walking around in my monkey mind. I'm thinking, I'm analyzing, I'm planning, I'm looking ahead, I'm looking behind me. I'm not saying that these things aren't things that we need to do. But if that's all we're doing with our mind, we really haven't tapped its deeper resources for health and well-being. So if we remember, our minds think, our lungs breathe, but I'm going to start to have a new relationship with them. The other analogy that's really helped me in my own spiritual practice, and this is healthy distance. When you start to do thought observation meditation, you're creating a healthy distance from your thoughts. You're not so drowning in them, caught up in them, and this takes time. I'm just trying to get you excited about this. But what it helped me see was the true meaning of reincarnation and all of these contracts we made with our significant others or with the work we chose. And we know from our talks on No Solar, and we've been highly educated with the planning that goes in before we reincarnate. We make agreements, and we're all excited, and we get here and can't remember a thing because we're not supposed to. We're supposed to go through this growth process and figure it out. But when you figure your key relationships, be that your children or your spouses or whatever, and it doesn't matter how many you've had, you all made an agreement before this life to come together. So I now look on my life as a good stage play, and there have been, at my age, several acts, and I've invited all these people on. So why was I getting so upset when people were walking off the stage and I didn't want them to? Well, because I'm human. But now I have a different container to hold these experiences in. And therefore, it's back to myself. I'm the one that needs to take responsibility. So in every close relationship I've had, whether it had a great outcome or a not so great outcome, it's me. What am I doing with the results of that? How am I accepting? How am I no longer blaming, but just saying, oh wow, what a learning experience. I was talking with a friend in the last couple months. It was more like in a little emergency counseling session, which we all do for each other. And some words came into the conversation. Again, remember, I love maps, I love scales. I need to have something to hang on to. That when a trauma or an unfortunate experience happens, of course you're a victim. You can describe what the event was that just really upset you, whether it was a loss, an accident, it doesn't matter. But after that, you move into survivor. And a survivor is realizing they're still here. They have strength. They have made it through something tough. So you're starting to get your power back when you start to think of yourself as a survivor. Then it seems to me the next step is you are a peaceful warrior because you want to take care of the situation inside yourself. You want to let go of all the tough stuff. You may need to talk to someone, so you want to do that assertively. You want to own your feeling and explain what happens. And then I really feel you have worked it through. This trauma you have really worked with. And then the last part is you just are. It's like another page in your story. And that's really what our life is. It's a huge storybook. with all these pages that we're writing. And that makes me feel easier. And if it helps you, good. So here we are with, it's not easy to read, and we've learned this. When you're doing copying and you're putting things up, the colors matter. But this guide, Buddhist Guide to Mindfulness, was out in 2019. I love wandering through Barnes & Noble because it's still a bookstore that has magazines. And I also recommend this for people who don't enjoy reading. And I know there's a wide experience. Some people are avid readers, some people, and for different reasons. They may listen to things like podcasts or books on tape. But these magazines, to me, are awesome because they give you the nuts and bolts. It's not a lot of time spent reading, and you can take a lot from them. So in this guide, based on a spiritual teacher, I'll just have to read this out. Practice with the breathing until a certain level of concentration and calm is achieved. We know everything starts with breathing because you can't be upset and calm at the same time, and your road to getting there is deep breathing. And then open the awareness, this is the tricky part, to whatever arises. Now we're back to looking at your life as a stage play. Whatever arises, wow, the good, the bad, the indifferent, ultimately, all those emotional charges are absent because it's just there. It's just a happening. We're the ones who are going to go through it and gain something from it. It's almost like, I had to figure this out once. I have my soul eyes and I have my human eyes, and they're both happening simultaneously. My human is going through all these human struggles, and my soul is watching. Is she going to get it? Does she need a repeat? Does that relationship have to show up 5 years later in a different person, but it's still the same old thing that we're working on? Until finally, and when you've made a significant step in life, you feel freer and you say, I got that one. Could I have a little vacation before the next one comes in? Okay. I want to watch my time here because I could drift into anything. Let's keep going. I'm putting up the source along with where I got it because for people who are interested, Lion's Roar is one of my favorite magazines, and they are so good at bringing helpful stories and helping Western people understand Buddhist practices. The reason Buddhism flourishes when they move into a new country is because they integrate well. You never lose hold, like Spiritism, of your basic universal truths, but when you come into a new culture, you merge with it. And there are ways to make your principles stay, but you can lighten up with some of these things. So 3 conscious breaths is my favorite for people that don't meditate. I'd put it on a sticky note, and I would put it somewhere, because all you have to do in the morning is do 3 conscious breaths, or at the stoplight, or in the lunch line. It's just remembering it. And until it becomes practiced, it's a great idea sitting here, but we're not incorporating it into our life yet. So, to make meditation more accessible, we have apps. Now, don't ask me how to get one or put it in the phone, but I can tell you that they're there. And I have a good friend who's been working with the Calm app, and I know Kirsten talked about apps too. So, in the modern world, you use an app with a little bell that rings. So on your lunch break, you can do your 3 conscious breaths, or you can do your 2-minute visualization, and you go, wow, that was better than like walking around the block. It would be great to do both. There are different types of meditation, and that's what's interesting too. There isn't one way. In the Spiritist, we have been using a lot of guided imagery. And this health one is wonderful. And then once you get the basics of guided imagery, you can substitute other images. You could play classical music. It's all self-therapy. It's also a way to empty yourself when you had a tough day. For another great source, I didn't get all these up here, but PBS, and I showed this here, and maybe we'll show it again sometime. It's Mindfulness Goes Mainstream. And there are 2 CDs in here, or DVDs, I'm sorry, because you see the story of how certain companies are incorporating mindful practices in their daily routine. Plus, you've got meditation teachers here doing 6 or 7 meditations with you. You put the DVD in, it's just like you've decided to go to ARE for a weekend or a week. You teach yourself at home, because that's the good news now. Everything is so accessible and easy, you can find it. So that's an easy one too. So we have guided meditation, which is visualization. We have mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is from Jon Kabat-Zinn's work. And that is a systematic way that you learn to sit and breathe and watch your thoughts. We have transcendental meditation, TM, that's an oldie but goodie. I have a friend from the 70s who still sits twice a day with her mantra. And that was brought by a Maharishi from India. And then walking meditation. I have to smile. I don't remember how many people remember my attempt to teach the Spiritist walking meditation at my house. I think we'll try it again, because everything needs baby steps. But I think it might have been Daniel. I'll pick on him. When he came back from this walk, he said, "What is all that stuff in your neighbor's yard?" They have done research on these different kinds of meditation, and it's going to be logical to you when you hear the results. Another popular one, and it's part of the mindfulness-based stress reduction, is the body scan. It's also called autogenic training. And you very simply say, my head is warm and relaxed. My eyes are warm and relaxed. You know, you have done some breathing, you're lying down or sitting up. So very slowly you travel through your body, relaxing everything. It works. You can't be upset about a situation if you're doing this practice. You're creating room and space in yourself to heal. So people who take do body scan meditations, they are obviously getting familiar with their body, they're getting more in touch with their feelings, and they're also reducing negative thoughts. Another wonderful meditation is called loving kindness. Loving kindness. I had one meditation teacher in my Buddhist time period who nicely gave me the booklet he created for his 3 sons, how they would do loving kindness meditation before the sons went to sleep. So this is beautiful because what it does is really deepen empathy. A lot of people here are highly empathic already. It's not like you're missing it. But some people could use more of it. We won't go into who we would like to send it to. Because there are many people walking around now who do look a little more self-possessed than they are caring about others. But just to give you an idea about loving kindness, if you were a child, you would be saying, I love myself. May I be free from anger. May I be free from sadness. May I be free from pain. May I be healthy. There are other sentences. I now take loving kindness and I give it to my mom and dad. And then you go through, may they be free from sadness. May they be free from anger. May they be healthy. Then we go on to the kids at school and the teachers. Then we go to the people we don't know. And then the circle keeps getting wider. And then we go to the people we're having difficulties with. And then just like we've done in some of the guided imageries here at the center, we let it keep expanding out and out. So loving kindness is amazing for changing the brain and really helping us get to true compassion. We have so much ego involved all the time. It's how we're built. Even when we give gifts to people, we still have some ego involved, waiting for, a response. But as we continue to deepen pure compassion, you're just here. You're doing things. You're a channel. And what happens after you participated is not you anymore. It's wherever these things go and however the people receive it. So this is really a beautiful practice. It's easy to access loving kindness. And there's a variation called the offering meditation, where you offer everything that brings you pleasure to someone else. So it's just a twist on loving kindness, but it helps you with your attachments too. Like if I was going to offer up all my favorite things, or my favorite mountain, or my favorite bike, over time you get in touch with the impermanence of life. Everything is changing all the time. And our security, we want to hold on. I'd like to nail this person down who treats me well, but it's getting into the present moment, being totally here and appreciating and letting go. And what is really meant to be is going to come back to you. That was an old 70s saying, let it free. It'll come back to you if it's truly meant to be. Okay. What am I doing? I'm doing okay. Oh, this was another nice one that came out of Lion's Roar magazine. The question was, how frequently should I meditate? Logical question. I say start with 2 minutes. Start with 3 breaths. Just start. So the Zen saying is you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes every day, unless you're too busy. Then you should sit for an hour. And if that isn't a true statement, because when you are the most stressed is when you need this the most, and you're the least likely to make the time to do it. So we'll all sit with that one because we know what's good for us and what's hard to get to. But I always would encourage the children I was teaching this guided imagery to is to practice when you're feeling fine, because when that crisis comes, you can just about function. But if you can do a slight remembrance of one of these practices, or remember your rescue remedy, it's just all these tools, if we keep practicing, then we'll go, oh, in the midst of all this turmoil, or what did this person just say, then I can recenter myself and do something. Okay, let's go on to something else. This is my slide to talk about intuition. How many people feel that they have intuition, they use it, or is it kind of foreign? Oh, good. This is, of course, a good group. Intuition is really not thinking. It is not part of the thinking process. It is a gut feeling. It is a hunch. It is a synchronicity. So really, it's your soul talking to you. And if I want to increase communication with something, it's my soul. Because my soul is giving me the best advice. I will still seek advice. I'll go to practitioners. But we have such a treasure inside ourselves that we're just beginning to learn about, much less say, wow, do I want to figure out how to get to it. Again, it's a skill to me. We cultivate it. Like I even read a good article on faith. We think faith is just something that happens or we brought in from a past life, but faith can be cultivated. Everything can be affirmed and cultivated and grown. But now we're back to the age-old question, which speakers have talked about, is desire. And now we're back to how much do you really, really want it? We can't make anybody do anything. We know that. Boy, have all of us that wanted to rescue people learned that one. With the best of intentions, we want to help. We want to rescue. But that is not the way this works. Oh, get ready for the next one. This is my super map. You ready? Oh, that was a good response. Now this one, really, if you're interested and Daniel sends these slides to you, this one you would need to spend a fair amount of time on. But it's so fascinating. Now, Yasko can help me. Neurobiology would be the scientific study of the neuron, the biological study of the neurons. And this is applied. So now we're getting into metaphysics in the quantum energy field, but it's a great map. Over here, we have physical. For emotions, it turns out to be electromagnetic, mental, intuitive. This is where I was heading, and into spiritual. So they create this grid. You're on your level. You go over here, and you find therapies and ways to cultivate it. It's fascinating because here we've got like thermograms, EKGs, all these tools medicine is using, and even acupuncture winds up in here. We get up here and we're up to homeopathy and psychotherapy, but this one is where we get Jungian psychotherapy. This is where we get into the deeper parts of the soul. And hypnotherapy winds up here, because in the Spiritist understanding, hypnotherapy, regression therapy is a powerful tool to use when you are working with your emotions. Whoops. Okay, I guess I was supposed to leave. Wait a minute. And up here we've got prayer, meditation, everything you would think. This is how you stay in touch with your spiritual body. And this is our talk, and many more talks to come on knowing yourself and gaining more self-awareness about your feelings, your thoughts, and everything else. Once I was on a retreat, and somebody was saying how very difficult it is to keep all these parts of yourself growing relatively together. And it helped explain to me how we have had the experience with spiritual teachers coming from the east of this country that things happened, like somebody accumulated a lot of Mercedes-Benz, and that was confusing to me when I was in my 20s, a powerful spiritual teacher with a lot of cars. It just didn't fit. So what happens is you can be highly advanced here, but you can still be working on things down here. So the spiritual teachers we love the most, Jesus being our par excellence, and Buddha, other figures, they have been able to integrate all these levels. Their physical life, their emotional life, their mental life, their spiritual life, they're all in harmony. They've really transcended all this. They've finished their growing curves. They've had all their lifetimes. So we have maps to follow. Okay. So now moving on to emotions, because that was one of the questions I put in my summary of what I was going to talk about, is how do we get in touch with our emotions? How do we learn them? That again can be another talk in itself, and I'm going to actually save some material for some other time. But because I chose this magazine, another Barnes & Noble find, I feel like I'm an agent for that business, but it's the only place I can walk into now and find things. This magazine just went off the rack yesterday, but if you wanted it, you could probably find it. Breathe comes out about 4 times a year. And with learning your emotions, if you'd like to go deeper, we know that music brings out a lot of feelings. We know that movies bring out a lot of feelings. So people that want to spend more time looking at their range of emotion can do that. Writing a letter to someone you love, this one I really love, or writing a letter to someone who made a difference in your life. Just spontaneously, what a gift. It could be somebody from the past. It was somebody that was a teacher for one class. But just this act of getting in touch with your feelings, the impact this person left on you, and sending them something. I guess it could be an email, that's okay. But somehow letter writing still seems to come in because you're so involved in it. And then, of course, you want to welcome any feelings that come up. It might come up in yoga, it might come up in meditation, and I found that a lot of feelings came up in the years I've done massage therapy or cranial sacral work. Once, this is in a cranial sacral session, and my practitioner was intuitive. She said, I see your grandmother. Now, my grandmother was deceased. I said, oh, okay, tell me. So my German grandmother came in at the end of my craniosacral session to apologize to me. Whoa, this is a whole other thing too. And she said, her message was, please forgive me for being so critical. You know, as a 6-year-old, I'm not sure I remember. I mean, I loved her, but I don't remember I focused on whether she was critical or not. But somehow this was on her spirit mind, and she said that was the only way I knew to love you. So what a gift. And, oh, here's this other really powerful one at the bottom. Make an agreement with a friend to share listening times. Isn't that a good one? You may not choose your spouse. You may. Logically, your spouse is the built-in person to do this with, but you may choose a friend. So when I meet you for tea, we could talk about many wonderful things, but let's do shared listening time. So that's exciting. That's a new idea to me and to some other people. So we'll let that one percolate and see who gets to it. Okay, now it's time for handouts. Okay. Daniel tried to make this clearer because I wanted the people at home to have it. But this is a take-home for everyone here so that we can spend some time on gratefulness. Gratefulness and forgiveness to me are the two blockbuster things to do in your life in order to make it work better or to heal. This is simple. It's just a guide. It's just like a sticky note that you take home to help you with a daily gratefulness practice. I'm grateful for who, what was the best part of today, or what happened that I'm so grateful for. The bottom is really good. I mean it, or I want to mean it.
Be honest.
Yeah. So we have another, like helpful tips list here. And just to go through for time, I think one of my favorites in here was give a meaningful gift. Now, what surprised me being raised by a super shopper is there are people who don't like to shop. Now that's alien to me. Where's my friend Isabella? I wanted to have support here. Oh, good. Good. Where are my shopping friends? Well, we know anything in life needs to be balanced, but it's good to make light of habits. When you give a meaningful gift, why that's so awesome is it means you know the person. It's not like, oh, I give flowers or candy. I'm not putting them down. But if you give a certain book or you give a certain aromatherapy to somebody, it just means I've spent time paying attention to you. And you can tell when somebody receives that gift that you've struck a chord or you struck their heart. So that's a good one. And then offering to help. We all love to help, and there are many good causes. But sometimes it could be just something as simple as picking up your neighbor's mail if you have to walk to the mailbox. There's so many little quick opportunities in your life that you can do something to help people. And this may be hard to read online, but it's write thank you notes. I know that to me blows my mind because I was raised with thank you notes. But now people thank me for writing a thank you note, which to me is pretty awesome. Just be there. We know just showing up when somebody needs extra help. We talked about listening and gift giving, learning to compromise. That's something we're all practicing. Smile more. That's one I have to remember too, especially people that tend to be serious, and I have a job, and I have to get out of the house. Just realizing you can smile at the same time you're doing it was a revelation, because I thought I had to look serious. Okay, I think we can move on. So I said, gratitude makes your life go better. Because at the end of the day, you ended on a positive note. No matter what happened, you search around for what you're grateful for. And then I call forgiveness the spiritual eraser. And we've already talked some about forgiveness already. But as I was preparing for this talk, it was so amazing to find this card in my library, because it came from a mediumistic meeting held at the Spiritist Center in 2005, and the spirit was Hendrik. And it was printed on a little card. So those of us who were around at the time and heard that talk, does anybody remember this? You still have your card?
I have it in my...
Somewhere. Like,
that night table?
Yeah.
Sometimes I find it.
No, I call it, like, when it revealed itself to me, I was so excited. So how to practice forgiveness. And this is, again, it's almost like our mantra. We are not perfect. We do not expect perfection from others. Compassion. We talked about this. Acceptance. Accept it. Don't fight it. Only unhappy people are doing these things to you anyway. It's not our job to give them therapy, but we can say when they're doing these things, they're not balanced, they're not feeling good. If they say something that's curt or rude, you know that there's something inside of them that, could feel better. So then we don't take it so personally. That's another healthy step. Visualize. Whoops, I changed it. I eliminated it? Where'd it go? I can't believe that. Maybe it's over. I only touched the forward button. There you go. Thank you. All right. Back. Maybe Hendrik thought it was time to make an appearance. Okay. So using your guided imagery, you visualize the person who did the wrong to you. Use a beautiful light. Blue seems to be a good color when you're working on forgiveness. It's also the throat chakra. It's coming out to heal. And of course, you're healing yourself with forgiveness. It's such a basic practice, but it's just something, again, to be reminded of. All right. The other rule of thumb I learned by reading an article, it was very well written in the latest issue of Well-Being Journal, and it was written by a medical intuitive. And it was on the subject of making judgments. Again, we're human. We were raised to make judgments, but now we're working with judgments with a new light. That when we make the judgment, which isn't positive, it's just whatever came out, she said, try to remember to instantly forgive. Now that's a pairing, judgment, forgiveness, because the judgment is somehow clouding your connection with your soul. And you can erase that by the forgiveness practice. So that's one just to kind of work with. It's a nice pairing. And it's a beautiful way to not be storing these emotions away that will show up later in some form you don't like. Oh, this has made me smile. I just had my hair done and I saw an article on forgiveness. It's Brad Pitt getting back together with Jennifer Aston. It's his second chance. So this is happening everywhere in the world right now. Forgiveness is big. Okay. Oh, and this is my favorite book for somebody that really wants to spend some time on forgiveness, finds forgiveness work difficult to do. I would get Forgive for Good. I heard him speak at ARE years ago. He went into Northern Ireland during the time of the conflict and really helped people forgive each other who had lost children and everything. His work is awesome. Okay, now we had to get to self-compassion. And again, yeah, where am I here? I'm mixed up here. This is from a paper-based talk. Even though it's up here, I still rely on my papers. So self-compassion. We don't tend to get to self-compassion as easily as we get to compassion for other people. Again, we have had some kind of confused ideas that thinking about myself is egotistical. No, thinking about yourself is how you get strong, happy, and well. So a self-care routine is vitally important for us to function in the world. So here is another outline on how you can practice self-love on a daily basis. You write down an affirmation. You can give yourself a treat every day. Of course, this treat, coffee, taking a walk, talking to a friend. 5 things I love about myself, 5 things I'm grateful for, etc. These little outlines are really to get us in the habit of doing this. And I hope I put this as the next slide. I did, good, all right. I found a website in my wanderings, which are not a lot online, but this one came up, and it's a handy one because there's a self-compassion quiz you can take on this website, and she will give you even more tips on how to treasure yourself. And I printed out the survey. I'll just read 1 or 2 of them. I'm disapproving and judgmental about my flaws and inadequacies. When I'm feeling down, I tend to obsess and fixate on everything that's wrong. When things go badly for me, I see the difficulties as part of life that everyone goes through. So you can see as you take this self-compassion test that there'll be positives and negatives in there. But so much to me comes from you becoming aware. A lot of times in life, you don't need a how-to-fix-it manual. You just need to bring it into your awareness. You're a competent human being. If something isn't working, you're going to find a way to fix it. If you need professional help, you'll go find it. If you need a good friend and a half an hour over a cup of tea, you'll ask for it. And that's true with children, too. We have really less to fix than we are to be, and be a container of love and support and encourage. But this quiz could be an eye-opener, because before this you didn't think about how much self-compassion I had. Now you take the quiz. They give you a score. You go, oh, really? And then you can move on from that experience. Okay, we are moving through this. Another handout. You can tell I came out of elementary school.
Wonderful.
And this one people can see at home. This is your daily planning guide to do all these wonderful things you keep hearing about at the Spiritist Center, and you're really well intended to do when you get home, and then life intervenes. So if this is an organizer for you, you can pick an affirmation. You can still have a checklist of things you want to get done today, but look, priorities. And look at that one, wellness section. My exercise plan winds up in there. And then you can add anything you want. You could do 3 conscious breaths, your little meditation break. And maybe you never fill this in. I'm okay with anything. And you just have it sitting there as an outline. That can be enough to trigger you to remember, this is how I exercise self-care. This is how I keep this vehicle in good running order. So we are coming to a conclusion. I have a Zen calendar, which gives me a thought for the day. So this one I particularly liked. Please think about this as you go on. Breathe on the world. Hold out your hands to it. When morning and evenings roll along, watch how they open and close, how they invite you to the long party that your life is. And the more years you've been incarnated, the more you appreciate that this is a long party. And those of us that are here the longest have the most to learn and also to enjoy, because we know things go better with love and enjoyment. And we have one more parting thought. The important point of spiritual practice is not to try to escape your life, but to face it exactly and completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula, for this amazing
You? Okay.
reminder. And I wish we could just go into meditation to meditate about this whole thing, but I know people like to talk. I know we like to express our thoughts, our feelings, and this is the moment that we open up for questions, comments that you may have, please.
Thank you, Paula. Joey. I think for me, what I'm taking home is the joy of delivering the message. Really, it says all. I have a question, though, with one of your favorite slides about let your soul be the pilot.
Yeah.
You say it implies that our soul, our spirit, it is already wise. So if the spirit is already wise, it implies that I'm trying to train my body. I'm just trying to understand the concept, because from the spiritist point of view, we were created as a spirit simple and ignorant, and it's a progression, it's a learning. So if I'm learning, it is my spirit who is learning. So I have difficulties trying to comprehend the concept.
Yeah. No, I follow all that. And I myself have always worked arduously to understand the word spirit and soul, and they can be interchangeable. I think how I'm using soul here is just your higher wisdom. It doesn't mean that I'm still not an evolving spirit, but there is, and this is what happens through meditation too, the couple of times you touch that very deep place in yourself, something gets resolved or happens. And it's not always words. So when my soul is my pilot, I'm just creating a stronger connection with this source of knowing. So maybe then the soul is hooked up with my mentor, who is hooked up to a bigger source of information. But I feel so safe and protected. That's where the guardian angel of my Catholic upbringing I still hold on to. Because there's a wiser being who's so patient, watching me go through these struggles and never leaves me. That's amazing. I complain about people who have left. This being, and I guess it's soul, yes, is there. So that's, in essence, what I'm trying to reinforce. And I also can't wait to meet this mentor. I'm not going to speed up my exit. Yeah.
So I want to say thank you to you and tell you how much your presentation spoke to me.
Oh.
I have been practicing yoga, meditation, and gratitude exercise daily and self-love. So I was like, I was all the time saying yes, 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 because I have been practicing. And I know how everything is able to change our lives. Like a little bit of gratitude and breathing exercise and yoga can change a lot. And I just want to point something you talked about breathing exercises and meditation. And to me, it's like coming back to your own body when you do some breathing exercise and meditation. It's like being grounded. And I want to point that I am 3 weeks away from graduation for my massage school training, massage therapy training. Yes, I'm so excited. And now I know I'm learning how to read people's body. And I can tell and see how much trauma and how much tension we can put in our bodies. So if you practice like coming back to your own body, if you practice meditation, if you practice breathing exercises, you'll be able to recognize that and seek for help. That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Paula, thank you so much. That was a wonderful talk. And one thing I wanted to say is for people that don't meditate and that they think it's so hard. How do you do that sitting there quietly? And what Paula was talking about with me was that I saw, and I might have shared this before, that my meditation group, we went into a Baltimore City school that was in a terrible, terrible area where kids, nobody should experience what these kids lived every day. And we went in there to try to teach them to meditate and to quiet their minds. And at first, these kids were all over the place and throwing papers at me. And I just said to myself, just be patient. And after 8 weeks, these kids could just sit and quiet themselves. And, you know, some of them said, how are we going to do this when you leave? Like, where do we go? And I said, all you need is just to go into a corner in your house, wherever it's quiet, and you have the tools to quiet your minds, even though there's terrible things happening on their streets. So by the end of this, it was kind of like an experiment. I love these kids. And at first, I was so scared, really, walking into this school with bars in this terrible area. So if these kids, some of them were traumatized, if they could learn how to meditate, we all can.
Good
So,
advertisement.
thank you again, Paula.
Oh, you will.
Well, I like that first map that you present about our
Oh, my goodness.
feelings from the high up to the down one that has a very low score.
I don't know how to make that big, but I got back to it.
We all experience, like you said, all these feelings. So even today, I think I heard one of the talk. There is a lot of a preconcept or prejudice. We translate in English as prejudice. In Latin language, it's preconcept. So it's preconcept. And a lot are there because of this first concept that we got sometimes when we were not able to analyze it.
Yeah.
It was put in our life. But they said that this is part of the evolution of the brain of us as thinking beings to develop, as you said, this frontal cortex, that if you have to analyze each time, each event to see if it's good or bad, if it's anger, or if it's correct or not, it will take too much for the brain. So we have this concept, preconcept. The problem is that we keep using that old concept
structure,
that was put on our brain when we were not prepared, we are not full, and we keep using and repeating it. So how to break it? You know, because like, oh, well, I cannot show that I'm feeling guilty, because then the person is going to say, oh, I'm going to take advantage. That's how the kids were raised. Well, I have to show I'm strong.
Right.
I'm always correct. So even though inside you say, no, not so correct, we don't say. And worse than that, we don't admit to us
Yeah.
that we change our mind. So it's very hard to keep a lot of energy expend to keep our old concept and to keep proving. So how to break it in order to raise to these higher numbers? You know?
Well, it's interesting because I felt a whole lot of, emotion in that question, which is real. And it's what we're, like if we go back to that quote from Plenitude, ever since the beginning, we were scared. We put our anger down. I mean, it's like we are here in an evolutionary planetary transition time period where we do have these new possibilities. And it's almost by default we go back there because it's been used so much. We're bringing it up like a lotus flower out of the mud and the muck. We're bringing it up to the light of consciousness. And it will change because every time you catch yourself, you are therefore decreasing the pull of that ingrained habit. You're pausing. Like the 3 conscious breaths are a pause practice. All you have to do is interrupt that old way of being, and you are creating the new fertile ground for this newer being to emerge. Will it happen every time? No. But you will see yourself shifting. And there was a beautiful statement in something I was reading. It was on discipline. Now, my idea of discipline is hard. I've got to like fight myself. I have to get this unruly tribe organized. It's a lot of, like you said, effort. I'm exhausted. And the newer idea was, no, that's the old way. Discipline is easy. It's actually the easiest thing you choose because you want to stay in alignment with this good feeling. You know immediately that you're off track. So with your soul being the pilot, giving you a little warning light, you take your breath, you let it go, and you're back on track. That was the miracle to me, and I'm going to work on it. It's a lot easier than the old pattern has suggested. And we are here to be explorers and to reinforce each other and say, wow, I didn't know discipline was easy, but I do. I feel better when I live according to the natural universal laws. It just feels right. And I can feel a little more quickly. This is the beauty of retirement because my life is slowed down now too. So I'm just also giving a boost to the retirement years where you have a chance to really stop it and feel it and shift it. But not to say you can't do it because people like the people here who work on themselves, who think about themselves, who review the day, you're already operating in such an advanced field. And then I say you go into the marketplace and give yourself a pat on the back. Now we're back to self-compassion. But we would love to have like a retreat time and just continue to plumb and explore these questions because they are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. One comment that I'd like to make, and it goes back to that Joanna de Angelis quote on how we repeat ourselves. There are many things with this talk that obviously we can dive into it. The meditation piece, the getting to know ourselves, which is basically where we're here tonight. One of the things that we were talking when we were driving here today is this idea of how many times we have to come back. And right. Let's not even start with that. I mean, how many times we have to readdress previous situations. And putting aside, and we have to take into consideration the fact that we have to come back into another new physical body to redo the things that we think it's so normal now. We were discussing about something that is very natural in our world nowadays. And Isabella said, well, you live on the planet Earth. And like, I get it, but why do we have to delay this into new reincarnations, new reencounters for us to go ahead and change? And, I think that this is a great reminder for ourselves with the 3 deep breaths that we can take, with the alertness that we can bring to ourselves to be in the now, to project ourselves in the future. Here's the word again, as we analyze ourselves in the now and really ask ourselves, okay, what do I want to accomplish in the future? Because you can project yourself in the future if you don't know, if you don't understand the now. So I think this is a great reminder, especially with this book, Plenitude, that helps us so much really understand the now, the connection with ourselves that we lose very often. And then we have to, from many, many times, we have to readdress it and get it right. Get it right now, right? So I think this is an amazing reminder, and there's a lot that obviously we can go over. And I actually like the other table. That was very intense too, but to move on. Yeah, you don't have to pull out, but definitely
Oh, the
something for us
applied
to.
neurobiology.
Yes.
That was a helpful one too, because it lists all the therapies, and I think a lot of times what we're looking for is, what do I do? Where do I go? And the other interesting thing on here for me too, let me see if I can get my pointer. Basic meditation. Okay, we're at the feeling electromagnetic body. That's great. Relaxation response. We just talked about that. Samia reinforced it, where we are doing body scans, breathing. That's still coming in here. It's going to take us time. Look where we go to get to true meditation, which is beyond even calm. I mean, these are your really adept spiritual practitioners. And like Matthew Ricard, when I was in his presence in Bhutan, it was amazing to me. You know, raised a Frenchman, but left and just spent his life learning from teachers in Asia. The energy field around him, how you know he lived in the present moment, that he had mastered, like the questions we're still struggling with. How do I walk out of these old habit patterns? And I think to him it really didn't matter whether he was in his body or out of his body, but he knew he was here like a bodhisattva to teach and to give back. So at some point, when you come back that way, you really are coming back as a helper. But here, isn't that awesome what we're trying to get to? Self-healing. It doesn't take away from all the healing practitioners, but it's that trust and believe, that faith, that everything you need to heal yourself, you are carrying around with you. So we'll continue our conversation. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Hey, Paula, thank you. I guess I have the last question, Leo. So I just wanted to go back and read the title of your talk and ask a more philosophical question. Okay, I can read here. The title of your talk is Further Explorations on Knowing and Loving Yourself. Here's the question. It's a philosophical question. There is no,
Right or
wrong answer.
Right.
So we learn that we need to know ourselves. The title of your talk has the word loving. So in order for us to loving ourselves, has a requirement to know ourselves first, or doesn't matter?
I think ultimately it doesn't matter, because we're saying love is the primary driving force. So your son, we hope, living in a loving environment, loves himself. We can't say he knows himself yet. Because we are evolving, we know they're perfect spirits. We're on this evolution train, so to speak. That's where the knowing comes in. So it is important. It's almost like Ram Dass had a quote back in the 70s when he said, it's both and. The and is the mystery. The and is the spirit. I'm not there. I don't have a brain that can comprehend it. I can touch it once in a while in prayer and meditation and in good fellowship, and I trust it's there. But I'm still trying to move this apparatus along, like up one of these scales further. So I have a responsibility to know myself. How I know myself now at 72 is way different than when I was 22. But I celebrate both ages.
So, right now, if you do a evaluation of your life, as you mentioned, you said that you can say that you love more yourself now because you know more.
I think we go back to that beautiful picture of the waterfall. I'm guessing that my channel has widened. I think I'm accessing more of this deeper spiritual love. It was there all along, but I had to continually pick myself up again, try again, work through all these psychological challenges to get here. I'm not finished. Like I said, I am interested in meeting the mentor, but I'll wait. There's still more for me to do. It's just, that's where I think life is so exciting, when we can step back and say there's different strokes for different folks. Each decade, each developmental stage brings in everything you could think of. And the very cool thing, I'll have to tease Leo because in a couple of his talks, he kept grabbing 70 as his age for being old. And we, and we are changing that around now because here we are, those of us that are gifted still with health and the ability and the financial means to still study and explore, we are going to keep redefining aging. So that even your question, know and love yourself, ask a 100-year-old that same question. And who knows? And at some point, when you're way up at that top, like where Matthew Richard was when I, was around him, he was a human being I had breakfast with, but as a spiritual master, I couldn't put words into how his mind functioned. So many things, I think my concluding thought is, there's so many things that are beyond words. I have to be a human, I need to learn words, I need to learn to communicate, but at some moment when I step off this life experience and I'm gone, it's different. It's beyond the words.
Thank you, Paula. Great presentation.
Thank you again, Paula.